We can't let fear bind us. We know that too well. A chase for truth, then. Malik's mouth quirked in a half smile, softening the edge between them, though the seriousness remained palpable. Exactly, Cleo said, emboldened by his slight nod. We must reckon with the shadows. As the rain began to ease, a momentary reprieve from the storm, Malik's eyes locked onto hers. Then let's go uncover that truth, he declared, reaching for her hand, providing warmth and strength as they stepped back into the downpour together. As they ran through the streets, soaked but alive with purpose, Cleo realized that this chase might not just be about the truth. It might also herald the rediscovery of each other in the midst of chaos. Was love the key that could save them both? Together, then, she whispered, feeling the thrill of their shared journey. Always, Malik replied, squeezing her hand, their resolve firming beneath the darkened skies. Scene 85. Promises and Possibilities. The aged wood of the dance hall creaked beneath the heels of resplendently clad patrons, a sepulchre of grandeur concealed beneath layers of deception and pretense. Crystal chandeliers stretched from the intricate ceiling like grasping fingers, casting a soft illumination that painted the room in flickering gold. Cleo stood near the cool marble of a balustrade, her heart a thunderous rhythm against the thrum of laughter and music. The gentle, pulsing melody swirled around her, yet she felt cocooned in silence, her mind racing at a mile a minute, echoing thoughts of promises she had made. Across the hall, Malik Orpheus leaned against the wall, a brooding presence deftly separated from the gaiety around him. Shadows accentuated the sharp angles of his face, but the warmth in his eyes cut through the dimming light. He scanned the crowd like a hawk, always watchful, forever protective. When his gaze landed on Cleo, an unspoken understanding passed between them, the kind that staked its claim on their burgeoning connection. Cleo turned to him, her breath hitching at the intensity of his focus. "What weighs you down today, Mr. Orpheus? Those muscles seem far more suited to heroic deeds than brooding." She jested lightly, her tone raised to match the volume of the waltz, but a tension laced her words. Malik pushed off from the wall, the silken fabric of his waistcoat stretching tautly over his chest. "I find brooding rather instinctual in environments swarming with insincerity. The world rarely spins as smoothly as the waltz suggests," he replied, casting a sidelong glance across the dance hall toward a cluster of gentlemen whose laughter sliced through the air with condescension. Cleo followed his gaze, her jaw tightening at the sight of her fiancé surrounded by a pack of sycophants. Rainier's careless laughter echoed with the sound of someone's heart shattering. "He thinks himself invincible," she murmured, partly to herself as the grip of doubt tightened around her. She felt the weight of her own promises pressing down. "I should have held my ground, but—" "Cleo," Malik's voice cut through her hesitation like a knife. His deep, resonant tone drew her eyes back to him. "You must stop second-guessing every choice you've made. You wanted to believe that spark could reignite between you two. And now," she challenged, her brow furrowing in determination, yet frustration as if she were wrestling against unseen chains. "What do I do, Malik? I can't be the woman bolstered by fleeting hope. I need resolution." He moved closer, the space between them narrowing until the air pulsed thick with unspoken intensity, then stopped dancing around the truth. His voice was barely above a whisper, a charged invitation that sent a shiver through her. "Choose for yourself, Cleo, not for him." The energy crackled, intertwining around them, yet there was an undeniable current of fear. Cleo's heart raced at the implications of his words. They loomed larger than the room itself, the promises she had made to herself, echoed like a clock striking midnight. "But what if in choosing myself, I lose everything?" she replied, her voice trembling slightly, verbalizing a fear she had tried to bury under layers of bravado. "Life is unpredictable. It often feels like we're woven into destinies we never desired," Malik said, the gravity of his gaze holding her captive. "But living for someone else's dream? That's the surest way to lose your life entirely." Cleo's chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, her courage fighting against the instinct to retreat. The dance of their hesitations swirled around them like the consuming rhythm that filled the room. "You're right," she conceded, her heart thumping at the truth rolling off her tongue like a weight lifted. "I must prepare for what comes next." Malik stepped closer, his arm brushing against hers, sparking tingling warmth. Just remember, you deserve to discover what lies beyond these walls, Cleo, to breathe without the sting of obligation. Your promises should uplift you, not chain you. The music swelled to a crescendo as Cleo closed her eyes for a brief moment, imagining the world outside beyond the expectations of others. When she opened her eyes, she found Malik watching her, his expression softened, promise lingering in the air. "And what if I find that promise tempting?" she asked, half teasing, half breathless. "Then fate will lead you where you need to be," Malik replied earnestly, his smile igniting something deep within her. In that glimmering moment, the cosmos seemed to align, and Cleo took a deep breath, feeling the kiss of possibility stir within her. "Perhaps it's time I made a new promise," she whispered, a small flicker of determination igniting her spirit. Malik's gaze held hers, unwavering, and in the electrical tension around them, the room faded, leaving only two souls poised on the brink of a choice that might alter the course of both their lives. Scene 86. Unlikely alliances. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting hues of crimson and burnt orange across the canvas of a waning day in London. A slight breeze fluttered through the open windows of Cleo Seke's modest drawing room, carrying the sweet scent of jasmine from the garden outside. Cleo stood by the window, a half-prepared tea service laid out on the table behind her, the delicate porcelain clinking softly as she fiddled with the sugar tongues, her mind adrift in tangled thoughts. Malik Orpheus entered the room with an easy stride, his presence a soothing balm against the chaos of her thoughts. "Shall I add a splash of brandy to that tea, Cleo? Might ease the weight of today's burdens." She turned, an ironic smile dancing at the corners of her lips. "If only I could drown my woes like that, Malik. But I fear I'd be too tipsy to deal with whatever is lurking outside that door." His brow arched, an amused glimmer in his dark eyes. "You underestimate the power of fortified tea. Besides, if there's trouble outside, I think we both know who's better suited to handle it." Before she could respond, a loud knock echoed in the hallway, jolting Cleo from her reverie. Malik's expression stiffened, his humor gone in an instant. "Stay behind me." "What are you planning to do?" Cleo asked, a mix of irritation and concern swirling in her gut. He gave her a steadying look. "Watch and learn." They exchanged a brief glance, the kind that simmered with unspoken tension, before Malik lifted the latch and swung the door open. On the threshold stood Kira, an old friend with an air of defiance clinging to her like a second skin. Behind her, a cluster of concerned faces waited, their expressions a mixture of fear and determination. "Cleo," Kira exclaimed, stepping into the room, her voice sharp and urgent. "We need to talk, now." "Could you not simply send a letter? You know I have company," Cleo replied, her tone laced with impatience. Kira crossed the threshold entirely, her fists clenching. "No, Cleo, this is urgent. They're coming for you, and it's worse than we thought." "Who? What are you talking about?" Malik interjected, closing the door behind him, the tension in the room thickening like fog. Kira's gaze flicked to him, assessing. "I'm not sure we can trust him, Cleo. He's connected to them. Easier to trust than to attack me without warning," Malik replied coolly, a shadow flickering across his handsome features. Before Cleo could diffuse the mounting tension, Kira stepped forward, defiance radiating from her. "They've uncovered secrets that could ruin you. Your engagement, it's a trap, a web that's already begun to ensnare you." Cleo felt a blow to her chest, the weight of Kira's words threatening to crush her. "You don't know what you're talking about." Yet, doubt gnawed at her, threatening the fortress of her confidence. "Actually, I do," Kira shot back, meeting her eyes with an intensity that dared her to falter. "This isn't just about you anymore. They won't stop until they silence you and Malik both." "Silence?" Malik mused aloud, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a tense whisper. "I've had my share of quiet moments, but I tend to prefer noise." "Yes, well, we'd rather not end up in an eternal silence," Kira retorted, the argument spinning wildly. The atmosphere crackled with offhanded barbs and unspoken fears. "Enough," Cleo shouted, her patience fraying. "If we're going to tackle this, we need to be united. Malik's involvement is no more a threat than Kira's sudden return." "There's still a huge risk," Kira pressed, her hands gesturing forcefully. "I'm not letting anyone play with your life for the sake of alliances formed out of necessity." I won't be squeezed into any box, Cleo shot back, and the two women's glares were both fierce and unyielding. Turning towards Malik for support, she found him watching her closely. Beneath the anger of the moment, an understanding flickered between them. Cleo's breath caught as she felt the gravity of their shared ordeal bind them tighter than any spoken vow. With a sudden resolve, Cleo extended her hand towards Malik. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Malik's fingers intertwined with hers, his grip firm yet reassuring. In that instance, the tension softened into something dangerously electrifying, his gaze lingering on her lips just a heartbeat too long. Together, then. Kira, caught off guard by their display, looked between them, searching for the right words. Just promise me, both of you, that you'll be careful. In this world, Malik replied, his voice low and resolute, we can't afford to be anything less than fierce. As Cleo blinked away the unexpected rush of emotion, the gathering storm outside echoed the tumult within. They stood there, three warriors on the precipice of chaos, unsure of what awaited them in the shadows, but undeniably ready to fight. Little did they know, under the glowing light of their resolve, an unexpected alliance formed that might just tip the scales of power in their favor. Scene 87, A Night of Reckoning. The flickering candlelight danced ominously across the dimly lit sitting room, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. Outside, the lively sounds of a distant ball filtered through the open windows, where laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses, oblivious to the tempest brewing inside. Cleo Seke's fingers traced the edge of a porcelain teacup, her movements precise yet jittery, echoing the unrest in her heart. Malik Orpheus stood nearby, arms crossed, his brooding composure a stark contrast to the vibrant atmosphere outside. He had always gotten under her skin, his presence igniting both warmth and unease within her. Cleo, do you even see the irony in what you're avoiding? He asked, his voice low and charged, echoing through the tense air. Cleo's jaw tightened, and the porcelain cup clattered against the saucer before she set it back down, a slight tremor betraying her feigned calm. Irony? She scoffed, the defiance in her tone punctuated by a determination to hold her ground. Isn't it just self-preservation? I didn't choose this life, Malik. It chose me. Malik stepped closer, the space between them narrowing, as if the walls were leaning in, intrigued by the intensity of their exchange. And yet you seem to attract it like a moth to a flame. You pretend to be so independent, yet every time the darkness creeps back. He paused, his eyes locking onto hers, the weight of unspoken words thick in the air. You hide. You'll never find peace by retreating into shadows. Taking a breath, Cleo turned away, fixing her gaze on the flickering candle. The scent of warm wax mingled with the faint perfume lingering in the room, a bittersweet reminder of her once innocent dreams. She had walked into this world willingly, yet its depths threatened to consume her. You act as though you've never been haunted by your past, she replied, her voice softer. Think of what you conceal. What really happened the night my mother died? The question hung like a ghost between them, unresolved and aching. Malik's expression shifted, a fleeting flicker of pain betraying his captivating facade. That isn't fair, he rebutted, tension coiling tighter between them, his fists relaxing only to clench again. I'm not the enemy you keep wanting me to be. Cleo lowered her gaze, struck by his vulnerability. The strength in him was a balm, yet it also ignited the tumult within her. And who are you, Malik? To always step into my life like a knight in shining armor, yet never reveal your own scars. She shifted, the air thick with anticipation, the electric pull between them undeniable. As he stepped closer, the space between them electrified. His scent, an alluring mix of cedar and citrus, enveloped her, drawing her in. I'm trying to help you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. But you have to let it in. Let me in. Cleo's heart raced at the intensity in his gaze. She tilted her head back, trying to maintain some semblance of control, yet feeling drawn into his orbit. Help me how? By telling me to face what I'm too scared to confront? She reached out, her fingers brushing against his shoulder, the contact sending shivers through her core. You know the pain I've carried. No one wants the truth. Not really. Maybe, he replied, leaning closer still, voice thickening with intention. But it's time for the truth. You don't know how strong you are, Cleo. You've hidden away behind so many walls that I fear you've forgotten how to break them down." She swallowed hard, his words reverberating through her. Was it strength she needed, or was it perhaps the warmth of letting go? Cleo felt the air change, charged and crackling with something unspoken. "And if I fail?" she questioned, vulnerability laid bare in her tone. "You won't," he countered, his voice firm, laden with both challenge and promise. Malik leaned closer, the warmth of his breath mingling with the pulsing heat of her own rising desire. Their bodies were inches apart, eyes locked, shared breath mingling in the sacred space between them. Time held its breath as they lingered in that moment, the world dissolving away. The distance vanished as he cupped her cheek gently, his thumb brushing against her skin, igniting every nerve alive. "Trust me," he murmured, and in that fragile heartbeat, everything else faded, leaving just the two of them hovering on the precipice. In a heartbeat, their lips met, a soft collision, like the first drops of rain on parched earth. The kiss deepened, laden with unspoken regrets and the hope of rebirth, a promise of what could be. As stars vibrated outside their cocoon, they pulled away, breathless, frustration and tenderness melding in their entwined souls. Exhaling, Cleo whispered, "What if I'm still a ghost of my past?" "Then let me help you find the light," Malik answered, his voice resolute yet tender, grounding her in that moment of reckoning. Scene 88. The joy of new relationships. As the sun dipped low behind the rooftops of Ashford, the light fractured into golden flecks, dancing on the cobblestones of the bustling square. Cleo Seke stood before a small stall overflowing with ripe fruits, her fingers delicately selecting a pear. The lush scents of citrus mingled with the warm aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery, cultivating an atmosphere ripe with possibility. Yet, beneath the surface of her casual errand, a tempest brewed within her. "Really, Cleo?" piped up Mariah, her closest confidant, leaning against the stall with a playful smile. "Are you sure you're okay choosing that one? It looks a bit flabby." Mariah's laughter rang out like wind chimes, startling nearby pigeons into flight. Cleo smirked, rolling the pear in her hand. "It has character, just like me. Isn't that right?" she teased, feigning an exaggerated flutter of her eyes. Mariah raised an eyebrow, her playfulness shifting to concern. "We're talking about fruit, not the eligibility of potential suitors," Mariah said, crossing her arms defiantly. "If this is your idea of searching for the perfect one, we might want to reevaluate your dating criteria." Taking the cue to deflect, Cleo changed the topic, her mischievous spirit reinvigorated. "Then let me get the finest one for each gentleman on our list. Perhaps they will thank me with serenades." A breathless laugh escaped Mariah. "Oh, I'd pay good money for a scene like that. Can't you imagine Malik serenading you?" Cleo's heart skipped, a momentary flutter of warmth mixed with trepidation. Malik Orpheus was a world of complexity, wrapped in charm, and their interactions felt like the storm-laden sky above them, charged with energy yet foreshadowing something inevitable. "And how many ladies has he charmed with that voice?" Cleo interjected, trying to keep her casual demeanor firm. Cool breezes swept through the square, teasing Cleo's hair. "The same amount who've fallen for his dark allure," Mariah remarked, leaning closer with wide eyes. "But remember, attraction is a two-way street. Have you, I don't know, thought of taking a chance?" Cleo inhaled sharply, the very air thickening with the weight of that question. She shrugged lightly, perhaps too lightly, and turned her attention back to the stall, trying to dismiss the notion brewing in her mind. "It's just complicated." "Complicated?" Mariah repeated, placing her hands on her hips. "You're still holding on to that engagement like it was a prized trophy. Just look at the freedom you've gained." The words captured Cleo's heart, but also her hesitance. "You have a chance to redefine everything. Don't let that slip away." Just then, rehearsed banter turned serious as Malik approached, his tall, imposing figure standing out like a lighthouse amid a sea of ordinary folk. The laughter faded, replaced by an unusual electricity. "What's this nonsense about trophies?" he asked, shooting a perplexed glance at Mariah, but keeping his attention fixed on Cleo. "Nothing of consequence," Cleo replied promptly, drawing in a breath, feeling a rush of heat creep into her cheeks. "Just deciding on fruit for our esteemed guests." His gaze narrowed playfully, his voice taking on a casual lilt. "In that case, I demand you pick mine." Cleo feigned offense. And what makes you think you deserve to be catered to? You're in the presence of greatness, after all. With a grin that could light up the overcast skies, Malik stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Ah, but it's precisely your greatness that demands I keep close ties with you. I can hardly do that if I'm deprived of my favorite fruit. The moment hung. Neighbors bustled around, but all Cleo felt was the overwhelming pull of Malik's presence as he leaned against the stall, the world fading away. The bustling noise faded to a dull thrum as if they were encased in a bubble. "And what's your favorite?" she asked, voice barely rising above a whisper, heart racing with unspoken possibilities. He tilted his head slightly as if calculating something. "Sometimes I think it's the thrill of the chase. Other times, it's the satisfaction of finally savoring the appropriate catch." With a shared understanding dancing between them, Cleo's defenses crumbled just a bit, and he dared to reach out, brushing a stray curl from her face, the sensation igniting enough sparks to cancel out the crowds beyond. "May I?" he inquired, their gazes locked like two forces of nature. "Only if I may choose the very best." Cleo dared, feeling the taut rope of anticipation stretch between them before she let the strands unravel and leaned in, their lips brushing together. As the kiss deepened, everything around them melted, a splash of flavor, the crisp air thick with autumn's charm, and the palpable tension transformed into a soft glow. Just then, as the warm sun dipped beneath the horizon, it felt like the world beyond their little bubble was reaching toward them, as if to say, "Welcome to your new beginning." Finally, she pulled back slightly, breathless yet emboldened. "I believe you just claimed a prize far greater than any trophy," she teased, heart racing. Laughter blended into the night, a symphony of emotions they were yet to unravel, holding promises of wild adventures and shared secrets. And as the twilight deepened, so did their connection, illuminating the uncertain path ahead. Scene 89. The fragility of trust. The vibrant hues of the evening sunset cast a warm glow across the elegantly appointed drawing room, a stark contrast to the chill enveloping Cleo's heart as she faced Malik. The remnants of a party lingered like echoes within the ornate walls. Laughter and clinking china whispered from the adjoining ballroom, yet their corner remained insulated in an urgency that felt far too intimate to share with the festivities beyond. "Why didn't you tell me?" Cleo's voice wavered slightly, the steely edge she grasped giving way to something softer, more vulnerable. Her eyes, reflecting a tempest of emotions, searched Malik's face for answers buried deep in his guarded demeanor. Malik, leaning against the mantel, seemed to carry the weight of the world in his dark, brooding presence. "What do you want me to say, Cleo? That I knew everything? That the shadows lurking in my family's past are the very ghosts haunting yours?" He paused, pinching the bridge of his nose, a flicker of frustration breaking through his calm facade. "There are things you might not be ready to hear." "Things," Cleo spat back, her cheeks aflame with a mix of indignation and hurt. "Or lies. I thought we were beyond that." She stepped closer, the plush carpet muffling her footsteps, yet the tension crackled like static in the air as their bodies drew nearer. "And I thought you understood the dangers we're stepping into." He pushed off from the mantel, posture shifting, and closed the distance. There was a hunger in his gaze, a rawness that made her heart race. Trusting each other matters now more than ever. Cleo's defiance flickered in the face of that intensity. "Trust? After what your family's secrets have done to us, how can I?" Her throat tightened, the emotion woven in her words palpable. She barely recognized the sound of her own voice, resembling more of a plea than offense. "That's the challenge now." Malik's tone softened, each word laced with sincerity. "To overcome the legacy of mistakes that hang over us." He stepped even closer, his breath warm against her skin, igniting the air between them. The remnants of the evening's gaiety felt miles away, leaving just the two of them in this unfolding tension. In that moment, Cleo's defenses began to wane. The dim lighting caught in his eyes, splashes of gold and amber that blended into the deep brown, transfixing her thoughts. "You think I can just accept your family's past? As if my own isn't enough to grapple with." "I want to protect you from what I can," he murmured, brushing a finger along her arm, igniting a trail of warmth that blossomed in its wake, a touch so tender it felt as if he knew every wound she harbored inside. That gentle presentment unraveled her defenses completely. Cleo, feeling vulnerable yet fierce, stepped forward, narrowing the gap between them until she could breathe him in woodsy, hinting at burnt cedar, a scent that wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. "Then don't keep me in the dark," she implored, her voice husky with emotion, the vulnerability laid bare in her admission. "Cleo," Malik hesitated, the weight of their shared responsibility heavy on his shoulders, yet something unyielding drew him closer, propelling them into uncharted territory that defied all logic. He leaned down, his lips brushing against hers softly, testing the waters of a connection deepened by tangled histories. The kiss burst into flame, an electric clash of worry and passion, igniting every sense. Her lips were warm and inviting, contrasting the cool air surrounding them. Each fleeting moment expanded into eternity, as if time had suspended itself, allowing them to breathe life into unspoken dreams cloaked in their shared history. As the kiss deepened, the room around them blurred, the laughter and festivity fading until they were cocooned in each other's embrace, a sanctuary. Cleo felt the barriers she had constructed over the past months crumble, revealing a truth farther along in their journey than she had dared anticipate. Trust felt more terrifying yet hopeful than it ever had before. Finally, they pulled apart, breathless. Cleo's pulse was a wild drumbeat in her chest. Thoughts tumbled chaotically through her mind like leaves caught in a whirlpool. "You do realize we're both running into a storm," she whispered, searching for clarity in the intensity of his gaze. "Sometimes storms lead to clearer skies," Malik replied, his voice steady, laced with a promise that lingered in the charged air. As the tension hung thick between them, Cleo steadied herself, wondering if they were indeed prepared to navigate the tempest awaiting them, or if it would tear them apart instead. Scene 90. Navigating choppy waters. The tavern was thick with the scent of aged wood and spilled ale, shadows dancing across the walls as a flickering candle flickered defiantly against the autumn chill seeping through the cracked windows. Cleo Seke stood at the edge of the small gathering, her heart thrumming like a restless bird in a cage. The murmurs of laughter from the intimate circles of patrons felt like shards of glass in her chest. Tonight's meeting was crucial, a clandestine attempt to discern the depths of the world her engagement had cast her into. Cleo's fingers brushed the cool rim of her glass, the untouched whiskey sloshing lightly, mirroring the unease swirling within her. Across the room, Malik Orpheus leaned casually against the bar, the lines of his broad shoulders accentuated under the dim light. His presence was magnetic, yet there was a distance in his gaze, a disconnect that flickered between them like a candle flame dancing madly. "Cleo," a sharp voice broke through her reverie. It was Ada, a friend whose laughter often filled the gaps of Cleo's meticulously structured life. Yet tonight, Ada's tone was edged with concern. "You should really reconsider aligning yourself with these." She waved a hand, dismissively. "Characters. They're not the kind of people who play by the rules." Cleo opened her mouth, but the words tangled, blocked by the tangle of desperation and pride swelling further in her throat. "And your alternative is what? To stay in my gilded cage until I choke?" She shot back, her voice stronger than the tremor beneath it implied. Malik moved closer, moving through the throng as if he were parting the very air, body taut and eyes focused on Cleo. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Cleo." His voice was low yet firm, the warmth wrapping around her like a blanket against the brewing storm. But Cleo straightened, a steely resolve dancing in her eyes. "And what if I choose to? What if facing the chaos is my only option?" The tension between them thickened, every unspoken word hanging like a blade above their heads. "Sabotage is a recipe for disaster, and you seem intent on ruining everything." Malik's jaw clenched, deepening his brow into a thoughtful frown, a flicker of frustration igniting in his gaze. A collective gasp rumbled from a nearby table. The atmosphere shifted, pulsing with intensity as Cleo's attention flickered from Malik to a group of men across the room. She steeled herself, recognizing the men from her fiancé's side of the family, each one teeming with unearned power. "The family has eyes everywhere, you know," Malik warned, stepping closer, a protective air enveloping his words. "You're exposing yourself." "We're all exposed here, Malik," Cleo snapped, the impatience bubbling over. "What do you expect? That I hide until the storm passes? No, I'm steering into it. The resolve in her voice rang fiercely in the tavern, silencing their raucous chatter momentarily. But the pressure in the air was palpable, building towards an inevitable confrontation. Malik stepped closer, his scent a mix of sandalwood and fresh rain, invading her senses, grounding her in the chaos. It's not just about you and me anymore. His eyes searched hers, the vulnerability torn underneath a thin veil of control. There are things about my family. I can't protect you from everything. Cleo shivered as emotions fought within her, confidence battling dread. What kind of man hides secrets in the face of the woman he claims to protect? She asked, her voice softening, reaching out to him even as she seemed to scold. You have to trust me. His voice, a rich rumble, was tempered with urgency, tightening the space between them, as if calling forth the truth that hung between them like a storm cloud drawn ominously close. And what if trust is all I have left to lose? She countered, voice barely above a whisper. The frailty in her stance crumbled as strength rose beneath her skin. Tell me you'll be there when the water gets choppy. Malik hesitated, the world outside fading as they were swallowed by a burning connection. He stepped forward, closing the gap that had filled with shadows and doubt. I will fight for you, Cleo, always. Cleo swallowed, her heart thudding loudly against her ribs. Then let's navigate these choppy waters together. Their eyes locked, electric with unspoken promises too deep for mere words. The tavern's noise faded around them, leaving only the two of them, adrift in a turbulent sea of ambition, love, and shadows threatening to swallow them whole. Scene 91, Corruption Exposed. The air was thick with the scent of polished mahogany and desperation as Cleo Seke leaned against the marble columns of the ornate ballroom, her heart racing. Around her, laughter mingled with the strains of a distant orchestra, yet she felt utterly detached from it all. A gentle flicker of candlelight illuminated the intricate details of the gown that clung to her figure, but the fabric felt like a second skin, suffocating with the weight of expectation. She had spent years navigating the social labyrinth, but tonight would be different. Tonight she would peel back the layers of deceit suffocating her world. Cleo's thoughts spiraled back to Malik Orpheus, her late fiancé's brother. His piercing gaze that always seemed to see through her bravado. He had urged her time and again to confront the shadows lurking in her engagement, and she could almost hear his soft but insistent voice urging her forward. Steeling herself, she glanced across the ballroom. There he was, resplendent in a tailored coat of deep gray, exuding confidence even in the chaos around him. An unexpected vulnerability flickered across his face as he caught her eye, a softness that underlined the strength she had only recently come to admire. Cleo, he said softly, moving closer, the noise of the room fading around them. Are you certain you wish to do this? This gathering? It's the only option, she interrupted, her voice steely yet barely concealing the tremor of her uncertainty. If I don't speak up now, we'll never escape the corruption. She gestured to the opulence surrounding them, the glittering chandeliers and laughter echoing in the cavernous hall, a facade masking the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. Malik's brow furrowed. But what if they retaliate? You're playing a dangerous game, Cleo. She leaned closer, her breath hitching as she searched his eyes. And what choice do I have? To remain silent is to be complicit. I've fought too hard to let this slip through my fingers. The tension hung thick between them, the urgency palpable as their shoulders brushed, sending sparks of an unspoken connection arcing in the cool air. Just then, a commotion erupted across the ballroom. Cleo turned sharply, her eyes widening at the sight of a wealthy patron collapsing onto the polished floor, gnashing his teeth in despair, accusing another guest of embezzlement. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like a sudden gust of wind, and Cleo seized the moment, her pulse quickening with anticipation. Now, she exclaimed, locking eyes with Malik. This is it. Together, they pushed through the throng, navigating the sea of astonished guests. Cleo took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Malik's presence beside her, solid, unwavering, her shield against the tide of chaos. With every step closer to the center of the chaos, memories flashed, the wound of her fiancé's indifference, her gnawing self-doubt, and the resilience she had forged in the crucible of their toxic past. As she reached the hotbed of confrontation, She felt a wave of adrenaline rush through her. In that moment, vulnerability became her armor, and she stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. "I stand with him. The corrupt practices of this esteemed assembly will be exposed tonight." Gasps echoed through the ballroom, heads turning sharply to her as the crowd hushed in confusion. Malik caught her elbow, concern etched across his regal features. "Cleo, think carefully." "No, Malik," she asserted, her gaze unwavering. "After everything, it's time to dismantle this illusion of perfection." The mumbled agreements of her allies surged around her, bolstering her resolve. She continued, her voice steady yet impassioned. "Tonight, we unveil the truth hidden behind these lavish masks. Society's underbelly thrives on our silence, but not any longer." Cleo's heart pounded as she scanned the room, feeling the tightening knot of fear and exhilaration. Malik stepped closer, his eyes sharp as he kept watch for potential threats. "Cleo, you have a powerful presence. You must lead with caution," he murmured, an undercurrent of admiration lacing his words. His closeness ignited a flame deep within her, a sprout of courage that urged her to charge ahead. She raised her head high, her words spilling forth like a wildfire. "I will not be a pawn in their game. I will fight for those who cannot." In the charged silence that followed, she felt the room hold its breath, and for a fleeting moment, Cleo knew she was not just fighting for herself, but redefining the very essence of their world. Malik's hand found hers, squeezing gently, a silent assurance that ignited her defiance. "Together, then," he said, his voice low and intense, an echo of their entwined destinies. And in that moment, the weight of the past began to shift, the thrill of what could be burning brightly against the stark backdrop of uncertainty. Scene 92. Strength in vulnerability. The afternoon sun poured through the drawn curtains of Cleo Seke's dimly lit parlor, casting elongated shadows that danced on the intricate wallpaper. Outside, dark clouds loomed, thick and brooding, mirroring the turmoil inside. The crisp scent of impending rain hung in the air as Cleo paced the creaking floorboards with an urgency that matched the thunder rumbling in the distance. "Is it always like this?" Malik Orpheus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his presence both commanding and reassuring. He watched her, an enigmatic smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "A storm brewing in your heart while the clouds follow suit?" Cleo stopped mid-step, her brow furrowed. "It's not the clouds, Malik. It's everything that's colliding in my mind. How can I trust anything when I can't even trust myself?" Her voice trembled, laced with frustration. Malik pushed himself off the frame, stepping closer. The warmth of his body contrasted with the chilly air, creating a magnetic pull that grounded her amidst the chaos. "You know, strength isn't about keeping it all together. Sometimes it's in the admission of brokenness." He gestured to the rain-soaked garden outside. "Those flowers," he said softly, "they thrive in storms. They bend but don't break. Why does it feel so different for us? Why do we think we have to be unyielding?" The storm outside began to pelt the windows. Cleo inhaled deeply, the petrichor bursting with earthy richness. "I don't know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent so long building walls, thinking they would protect me. Walls only keep out what we want to flee from. They can't shield us from ourselves," he said, his gaze steady and penetrating. "You owe it to yourself to let someone in, Cleo. Maybe even me." Just as she was about to respond, the door burst open, and light laughter spilled into the room as Clara, a mutual friend, and Misha, another close ally, stormed in, drenched from the downpour, their riotous energy infectious. "Did someone order a tempest?" Clara laughed, shaking water from her hair like a playful puppy. Misha had her arm around Clara's shoulders and twirled her slightly, spinning the mood brighter. "More like an impending disaster, but fabulous nonetheless," she chimed. Cleo couldn't help but chuckle, the tension softening slightly. "You two are ridiculous. Why didn't you come through the back like normal people?" "Where's the fun in that?" Misha retorted, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "We thrive on drama, darling." Yet even amidst the laughter, Cleo felt a swell of emotion conflicting with the ease in the room. She turned back to Malik, already sensing his unwavering support without saying a word. "It's just, sometimes, I don't know how to be honest with myself, much less with anyone else." Malik leaned in slightly, his voice low and earnest. "Vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It unlocks that door you've locked for too long." With a sudden flash of courage, Cleo glanced back into Malik's deep eyes, the rain drumming like a heartbeat against the glass. And how do I start to unlock it? Start with me. Let me be the first to know your truth. The atmosphere shifted, charged with an undeniable intimacy, as if the world outside faded, leaving just the two of them suspended in time. Cleo felt a magnetic pull toward him, her heartbeat quickening, betraying the steel facade she maintained. But before she could speak again, Clara swooped in, mischief brightening her demeanor. All right, what's all this? I hope we're not interrupting a serious moment here. Why do you always have to ruin everything? Cleo teased, though her heart raced at the thought of what lay between herself and Malik. Clara placed her hands on her hips, feigning offense. Ruin? No, no. I'm here to save you both from excessive brooding. Also, I brought muffins. Now that's a saving grace, Misha chimed in, eagerly moving toward Clara's satchel. As the two friends set out a smorgasbord of plush pastries, Cleo caught Malik's eye again, realizing that amidst the lightheartedness, the conversation had ignited something genuine between them. Something to nurture, to embrace. Can we talk later? Cleo asked Malik softly, her gaze holding his with a mixture of hope and fear. Always, he replied, a soft smile lighting up his face. Let's weather the storm together. And with that promise, amidst their friends' laughter and the crescendo of rain outside, Cleo felt the first flicker of warmth in her heart begin to melt away the ice she had encased it in for too long. Scene 93. Fires of Change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting jaundiced rays through the window panes, the sitting room of Cleo Seke's estate bore the weight of an unspoken tension, its opulence feeling oppressive amidst the brittle air. Dark wood furniture, polished to a mirror finish, seemed to mock the emptiness that swelled in the space. A storm brewed within Cleo, reflected in the tempestuous sky outside, as shadows danced across walls adorned with portraits of long-gone relatives, their eyes silently judging her every decision. Cleo's heart drummed against her ribs, a steady reminder of her turmoil. She stood by the fireplace, her fingers lightly tracing the mantel, a familiar gesture that had always brought comfort. Tonight, however, it felt like a tether to a life she could no longer embrace. She stole a glance at Malik Orpheus, his tall frame leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, his expression carved from granite. The flickering flames illuminated the sharp angles of his face, lending an air of danger to his already formidable presence. Cleo, we can't keep pretending this is sustainable. Malik's voice drew her from her thoughts, rich and deep, each syllable dripping with urgency. You have to decide if you're ready to turn away from this engagement, from that life. She turned, piqued by the flickers of doubt entwined with his words. And you think running away is the answer? Is it that simple for you? Her tone was sharp, but her resolve wavered. The memories of fabric-covered dreams and societal expectations loomed over her like a specter. Malik unfolded himself from the doorframe and took a step closer, his rich, warm gaze fixed on her. It isn't running, Cleo. It's surviving. He paused, the silence stretching between them heavy like a shroud. I'm not just concerned about your choices. I'm worried about your life. She held his gaze, a smirk fluttering across her lips despite the weight of their conversation. And what about my choices? Are they simply a series of hurdles for you to leap over? The corner of his mouth quirked up for a brief moment, as if he found humor in her defiance. It's not a game to me. Every step I take to protect you carries my brother's last breaths stitched into it. That struck her like a physical blow, the mention of her late fiancé carving a chasm between their feelings. You think I don't care about that? She fired back, her heart racing, blood pounding in her ears. You think I would throw myself into this abyss without recognizing the stakes? The room fell silent again, each heartbeat reverberating like distant thunder. Malik stepped forward, cutting through the tension with palpable intensity. This isn't just about you, Cleo. It's about what's at risk if you continue down this brutal path. I've seen what darkness can do. She swallowed, her defenses cracking, and amid the crackling fire and unrelenting shadow, the intimacy of the moment surged between them. What do you know about my darkness? She whispered, the bravado slipping away like smoke. His presence enveloped her, the heat radiating between them, igniting an unfamiliar yearning. More than you think, he murmured, and the weight of his confession lingered like a lingering caress. The secrets you keep can consume you, like they consumed her. And what of my secrets? She challenged softly, desperate to redirect the spotlight away from their shared pain. How do you think they make me feel? Quick as lightning, he closed the distance, his expression less guarded. Cleo, his voice melted into a near whisper while he lifted a hand to brush back a loose strand of hair. Let me in. A breathless moment held them captive as the world outside faded. The subtle crackle of the fire, infused with the sweet scent of burning cedar, wrapped around them like a shared secret, igniting something more than resolve, a connection that pulsed with unspoken desires. But before she could respond, Cleo's errant thoughts stormed back. You speak of protection, but I need to protect myself too. This life, it transforms. I can't be the woman you want if I lose sight of who I am. The woman I want is standing before me, Cleo, Malik breathed, his voice tender yet strong. Whether you recognize her or not. She hesitated, the weight of his words grounding her, and the firelight flickered across his face, illuminating a heart torn between feeling anchors and flickering hope. At that moment, they teetered on the precipice of choice, a reflection of the storms brewing within and outside of their souls, waiting for either sure footing or a plunge into the unknown. Scene 94. Pushing forward together. The morning mist hung over the carriage home, enveloping it like a shroud. The air was thick and heavy, with an urgency as yet unspoken. Cleo paced the expansive foyer, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The faint scent of damp earth filtered through the open windows, the cool breeze teasing at her skirts. Every corner of the room echoed with her mounting anxiety, a pressure that thrummed just beneath the surface of her confident exterior. Is it to be like this forever? She murmured to herself, her voice barely more than a whisper. Malik entered, carrying the lingering chill of the outside with him. He spotted Cleo, her posture both fierce and frail as she looked out through the open door. He moved closer, drawn in by that inexplicable quality she held, an allure so powerful yet burdened with shadows. The storm brewing in the distance mirrored the turmoil they both faced, dark clouds roiling against the blue. Cleo, he said softly, and at the sound of her name, she turned, her expression shifting into something more vulnerable. You've not eaten. Neither have you, she shot back, though her heart quickened at the concern in his voice. For a moment, they stood suspended in the charged air, two steadfast figures against the world beyond. A temporary affliction, he replied, stepping closer, his eyes searching hers. The proximity ignited an unspoken tension between them. We have more pressing matters. As the first rumble of thunder broke in the distance, Cleo felt her breath catch. It was as though the world outside conspired with their unsteady hearts, revealing the rawness of the situation they found themselves in. We can't keep dancing around this. There are shadows, Malik, shadows that are closing in. The trouble was not only the threat looming over her engagement, or the hidden dangers of the dark underworld she had been unwittingly pulled into, but also the secrets buried within Malik's shrouded truths that might just tear them apart. Let them come, he declared, a fierce light glinting in his deep-set eyes. We'll face whatever is out there together. You need only trust me. Cleo's heart quickened at the weight of his words, unexpected warmth blooming within her chest. Trust has become a scarce commodity, Malik, she confessed, her voice breaking. Yet, here we are, facing perils I never anticipated. Sometimes, what we most fear drives us forward, Malik replied, stepping closer still, the electricity between them shifting into something palpable. The looming storm echoed their uncertainty, but also promised a release, a cleansing of what had been buried too long. You and I were tangled in this together, but we are not weak. No, she agreed, strength blossoming beneath the gentle fire of his gaze, but every choice that brought me to this moment feels like a storm set against me. Cleo, he murmured, his tone shifting from fierce resolve to something deeply intimate. We are the masters of our fates. Before she could respond, lightning zigzagged across the sky, illuminating his face in stark relief. It was at that moment, with the dark clouds swirling ominously overhead and the echoes of distant thunder, that their barriers crumbled. The vulnerability of the impending confrontation loomed within the depths of his eyes, and Cleo could feel an uncharted territory stretching before them, a space filled with possibility and fear. "Malik, promise me, if there comes a moment of darkness," she said, her voice thick with meaning, "we won't lose ourselves in the fight." "Promise," he vowed, his voice steady. "I'll protect you, no matter the cost." That promise hung in the air, an unbreakable bond formed amidst the chaos swirling outside. As the first raindrops began to patter against the window, Cleo reached for Malik's hand, her fingers curling around his strong warmth. In that simple touch, a surge of hope flickered, fierce and unyielding, echoing against the thunder that rumbled just beyond their fragile sanctuary. In that moment of connection, as the storm began to unfurl its fury around them, the world outside felt distant and irrelevant. They stood as one, ready to face whatever darkness awaited. "Together, then," she said softly, breathing life into the weighty air. "Always together," Malik affirmed, his grip tightening around her hand, sealing their pact as thunder roared overhead. Scene 95. The collective voices. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden light over the garden, blooming with vibrant azaleas and deep green ferns. The subtle rustle of leaves whispered stories of new beginnings and quiet determination. Cleo Seke stood at the center of the gathering, her heart thundering against the walls she had built around it. Today, she wasn't just a woman caught in the throes of societal expectations. She was a voice for change, a beacon in the tumultuous storm. Women surrounded her, each face a tapestry of strength and resilience.